Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. So we're continuing on with our discussion of Panchayatra Agamas. So we're discussing the doctrines of Panchayatra. So let's go straight to the text and see where we left off. Based on pure creation is the impure and pure creation, which comprises both the pure, what is different from, and what is different from it. Kutastha Purusha and Maya Shakti represent the manifestation of the Bhuti Shakti under this creation. Kutastha Purusha. So we just got to finish talking about the pure creation. And there was also this mixed creation and impure creation. So now there's this mixed impure and pure creation. It's a doctrine of pure creation and impure creation. Okay, so we're talking about Kutastha Purusha and Maya Shakti represent the manifestation of Bhuti Shakti. Okay, under this creation. Kutastha Purusha represents an aggregate of souls, right? Similar to a beehive. So you can imagine there's all these souls and each one of them is like in a cell of a beehive. Souls which have been affected by the impressions of deeds done from beginningless time, anadi karma, right? This is a pretty common theme in Vedanta, to understand that the soul, which is bound here in this material world, is bound since time immemorial by its good and bad deeds, the reactions to its good and bad deeds. Okay, so another version makes this the all-knowing person, right? So first of all, that's one idea of the Kutastha Purusha, and is an aggregate personality made of different souls. Just like in the Rig Veda, how we have the Purusha Sukta, we have universal man, and we say that his face and his arms and his legs and his stomach are the different castes. You know, so basically the man represents society and is a universal man. He represents the whole of society, all the different living creatures, at least the human beings. So in that sense, the Kutastha Purusha. In another sense, another version makes it the all-knowing person at the top of the enjoyers, right? So the supreme enjoyer, right? Who goes forth from him, right? The all-knowing, the top of the enjoyers who go forth from him at the time of creation and return to him at the time of dissolution. So this is also a concept that we have the Lord, the body, the jivatmans, or the individual souls, they reside within the body of the Lord, and at the time of creation, they come out and populate the universe. And at the time of dissolution of the universe, they contract back into the body of the Lord, and they sleep during the time of dissolution in very deep sleep, dreamless sleep, which is called Sushupti. So, though pure in themselves, these souls become impure on account of kama vasana. Kama vasana means the impressions, the vasanas of their karma, of their sinful and pious actions in previous lives from time immemorial. The rise of the Kutastha Purusha from Pradyumna, right? Because remember, we're talking about the Chaturvyuha, and we're talking about different aspects of material nature that are being overseen by these different expansions of the Lord in the Chaturvyuha, Vasudeva, Sankarishna, Pradyumna, Anirudha. The rise of the Kutastha Purusha from Pradyumna is depicted much in the same way as creation is described from the Purusha in the Purusha Sukta. There you go. That's what I just said. Okay, so along with the Kutastha Purusha, the Maya Shakti, right? So up there we were talking about Maya Shakti, Kutastha Purusha and Maya Shakti, right? So this is a concept of creation, right? Which is non-spiritual energy. So basically Prakriti, this material nature, comes into existence. That comes into existence. It is the primitive form of matter. Sometimes we call this pradana, right? Before the individual elements are separated out. So it is of three kinds: niyati, restriction; kala, time; and guna, quality. Pradyumna transfers both Kutastha Purusha and Maya Shakti into Anirudha for further development. So for further development, so remember, okay, so first of all, remember Shankara had this wrong understanding that the souls actually emanate from Sankarshana, but it's just that Sankarshana is in charge of all the souls. Pradyumna is in charge of this part of the manifestation, right? And now Anirudha is going to be in charge of further development in the creation. So they remain there with the latter, with Pradyumna, for 1,000 years and undergo changes. Exactly what changes? Maybe the Maya Shakti can certainly change, and the Kutastha Purusha is if it's a conglomerate of souls. I guess those souls could adopt bodies and they could also change, in that sense, the souls stay the same, of course, but because of attaining different bodies, due to Upadhana being manifest into different separate elements and then being combined together by the Creator, Chaturmukha Brahma, and inhabited by these Kutastha Purushas, this conglomerate of souls, then that's further evolution of the creation. So, Pradyumna transfers the Kutastha Purusha and Maya Shakti to Anirudha for further development. They remain with the latter for 1,000 years and undergo changes. Then there emerges Shakti, which means power, from Anirudha. So Anirudha has a power. Niyati comes from Shakti, and then Kala comes from Niyati, and Sattva Guna comes from Kala. So we've got this Shakti from Anirudha, this power from Anirudha, which becomes Niyati, which becomes restriction. And then from that comes time, and then from that comes Guna, or attributes or qualities. And then from that qualities comes Sattva Guna. Kala from Niyati, Sattva Guna from Kala. Rajaguna comes from Sattva Guna. So from the mode of goodness comes the mode of passion. From the mode of passion, then, comes the mode of ignorance, Tamaguna. Tamaguna comes from Rajaguna. So this is a type of order of creation, which is given in the Panchayatras here. So 8 Manus enter into Shakti. Okay. And pass through all the evolutes, right? These different stages of evolution above and in the same order. And these are all of the footnotes here show that this is all spoken of in the Ahibudna Samhita, Lakshmi Tantra, but basically the Ahibudna Samhita. So sometime we can look at the Ahibudna Samhita. We can also go through the Lakshmi Tantra has been completely translated into English. Ahibudna Samhita has been summarized by Otto von Schrader. So we could look at those individual texts if we want to know more about this. Maya Shakti, Niyati, and Kala means Maya Shakti is like the Prakriti, the material energy, and Niyati is restriction, Kala is time, are 3 aspects of Shakti, who is Rati, the wife of Anirudha. So Rati means in Sanskrit desire, and sometimes Rati is described as being the wife of Kamadev, Cupid. But here, so I don't know, I'm not sure whether Anirudha here is being identified with Cupid, with Kamadev, or not. Niyati is which was restriction, is the subtle regulator of everything. Okay, exactly what that means, we don't know. Kala, or time, is a mysterious power existing in time which invites everything to activity. So without time, there could be no activity. So any activity has a beginning, has a middle, has an end, etc. So it has to be time. Time has to manifest for activity to occur, right? I mean, even the material scientists say this. Okay, they say that the time was created at the Big Bang. Time was created, and then everything started happening like that. But before that, we can't say that anything was happening because there was no time. So Guna, which is manifested from Kala, Guna means attributes or qualities, right? Which are manifested from time, right? Because it seems to make logical sense that only after we have time and we have activity, there can be different types of activity. That is, the activity can have different types according to the quality of the activity, right? Either sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic. goodness, either good activity, passionate activity, or ignorant activity. So, is of three kinds, right? Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Anirudha as Vishnu, right? Anirudha expands into Vishnu, controls Sattva. These are going to be the Guna Avatars, an explanation of how the Guna Avatars come about, the avatars of the Lord which control the different modes of, or in charge, are considered in charge of the different modes of nature, immaterial nature. Ordinary sattva, ordinary goodness, ordinary passion, ordinary ignorance. So from Anirudha comes Vishnu, who controls sattva. Brahma controls Chaturmukha Brahma, right? Here it's called meaning Chaturmukha Brahma. Brahma controls Rajas, or mode of passion. Rudra controls Tamas. Their Shaktis are respectively, okay, so the consorts or the wives of these three deities, the Guna Avatars, are respectively Lakshmi for Vishnu, Saraswati for Brahma, and Gauri or Parvati for Shiva. These are held to come under the sheath of generation, right? Kosha means sheath. So in the Taittiriya Upanishad, it talks about different koshas, different sheaths, different containers within which, within each other, like this. So we have this one called Prasuti Kosha, the sheath of generation. After this, the gunas form into a mass called Avyakta. Avyakta means unmanifest, right? Unmanifest. We have Vyakta means manifesting everywhere. So Avyakta, unmanifest, which is called Tamas in one of the texts. So the Avyakta, the gunas form a mass, into a mass, which is Avyakta. I think we're going to talk about the evolution of matter now in the same way as the Sankhya system says. That's what it's going to say. Impure creation then starts. So everything that's been talked about up till now, from Vasudeva, Sankarsana, Pradyumna, Anirudha, to Vishnu, and then the creation of Brahma and Shiva, right, as Guna Avatars, the three Guna Avatars, right, and then from the gunas, the conglomerate of the gunas, the three gunas, coming Avyakta. Avyakta is also called Tamas, and from this Tamas, actual material elements are going to come. So impure creation then starts. So in the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna says, the bina, the separated material energy, is now that is going to evolve at this stage. So it is in two stages, primary and secondary. The former represents the evolution of matter as in the Sankhya system. So in the Sankhya system, there's an evolution of matter from subtle to gross, right? Basically from the pradhana and from the ether, from the mind, from the intelligence, from the subtle to the gross, which is the earth. So purushas, right, or personalities, right, persons are not many as in that system, but only one who is kutastha, collective. So at that point, there's a collective, like it was said before. Purusha and Prakriti get modified, literally cooked by time. Okay, that is, time also plays a part here. Mahat is called by several names, such as Vidya, Go, Avani, Brahmi, Vadhu, Vrida, Riddhi, Mati, Madhu, Akyati, Ishwari, Prajna. Okay, this is Mahat. Mahat, meaning it's the material nature itself. It is Buddhi. Buddhi means intelligence, with the sattvic element, with the element of the mode of goodness. Prana, with the or the life air. So intelligence with the mode of goodness, right? Prana, or the life air, with the mode of passion, right? And Kala, or time, with the mode of ignorance. Dharma, Jnana, Viraga, Aishwarya, right? So Dharma, Jnana, it says here Viraga, means Vairagya, right? Aishwarya are four divisions of the sattvic aspect. So these four things. religiosity, knowledge. Vairagya means Aishwarya means leadership or opulence, right? Vairagya means renunciation, right? So these are 4 divisions of sattva. They're sattvic aspects, and their opposites: adharma, ajnana, avairagya, anaishwarya, right? Represent 4 divisions of the tamasa aspect. So we have the sattvika aspect and the tamasa aspect, covered by these eight. They seem to be gunas. They seem to be expansions of the gunas, like that, right? They're attributes, right? So now, when we do yoga pith puja in the Pancharatric way, we mention these with dharma, jnana, vairagya, aishwarya, adharma, ajnana, avairagya, and anaishwarya. These are the opposites of those. Right, so it is said of the Manus that as they descend through the tattvas into the womb of Vidya, there arises from them bodhana, an intellectual organ with which they discriminate between the real and the unreal. Right? Unlike in the classical Sankhya, buddhi or intelligence represents sattvika aspect of mahat. Mahat is like pradhana. It's the conglomerate of elements before it's separated out, before the evolution of the evolution of the different individual elements. Among its several names noted above, akyati, pragya, ishvari, indicate that mahat denotes both virility and subconscious intelligence. Mahat is thus cosmic prana or cosmic life air. This interpretation is borne out by the use of the word Brahman in this sense in the Upanishads. So, and also the word prana in the place of Mahat, while the Sankhya categories are enumerated in the Ahibhagnya Samhita. So the further stages of creation from Mahat, right, are described almost as in the Sankhya system. We can note that the Ramanuja accepts basically the impure, what's called impure creation, that the procedure from the creation from Mahat through Prakriti through the different subtle to gross elements in the material world, almost in the same way as the Sankhya system. The descent of Manus is then shown to account for the rise of people who are from the intercourse of male and female principles. So after all of this happens, then we have living beings that are created with different genders, and then the Manus create these living beings with different genders, and then those living beings go on to be able to procreate and to have many more other living beings born from them. The Manus thus become the ancestors of numberless men. Yeah. The gross creation commences from the appearance. So we talked about the pure creation. We talked about the place where the pure and the the pure and the impure creation meet, and then now we're talking about the impure creation. So now we're talking about the gross creation, right, in more detail. The gross creation commences from the appearance, and this is all very easily summed up in some of the Rahasya Granthas by Brahmacharya, or even by the Vadagalaya Acharyas like Yadindamadadipika, or some books by Vedanta Deshika, right? They'll just sum this up by saying, basically, we accept the Sankhya system of the evolution of different forms of matter and different elements. But here he's going into the detail of that, the detail of what that means. So now we're going to talk about the gross detail of the evolution of matter. So the gross creation commences from the appearance of the earth, the last tattva, commences with the appearance of the earth, the last tattva. The principle thus created requires coalescence into a mass. The principles thus created require coalescence into a mass. This is attempted by Brahma creating the 4 youths, Sanaka, Sananda, Sanatana, and Sanat Kumara, called Chatusana, or also called the four Kumaras in English, right? Four Brahmacharya boys. So who, however, refused to have offspring. They refused, unlike the Manus, who were progenitors and who created beings with male and female beings, different genders, to create more and more offspring to populate the universe. These four sages did not do that. They refused to do that. So Rudra, who was then created, right? Rudra was then created because Brahma became angry at these four boys that he created because they didn't want to become progenitors. And so from his anger came Rudra as a Manasika Putra, as a son of Brahma from Brahma's anger. So then refused to have the offspring Rudra, who was then created, split himself into 11 Rudras. So first of all, one Rudra was created, and then from that one Rudra, there was created 11. The 6 progenitors, Prajapatis, Manus and others, were created, and they attended to the work of further creation. The individual soul is Chit Shakti. It's called Chit Shakti, which means that it's called the conscious power of individual consciousness. It is pure in its essence, imperishable, unchangeable, eternal, and unlimited. It is the consciousness witnessing the functioning of matter. It is the knowledge. It is knowledge, and at the same time, the knower. Okay? So example can be given, just like you have a lamp. When you have a lamp and you light the lamp shows you other things. The light of the lamp shows you other things. The light of the lamp also shows you the lamp, right? The lamp itself is lit up from its own light. So not only is the soul knowledge, pure knowledge, but it is also a knower. It's not just knowledge, it's knowledge, but it's not just static knowledge, but it's also able to know other things. Usually for knowledge to occur, you have to have a knower, a thing which is to be known, and a process of knowing. So here you have the soul is a knower, right? And it also is basically knowledge, solid, it's basically made of knowledge. It basically is knowledge. Like matter, the souls emanate from Shri. Well, that's interesting. It's saying here, like matter, the souls emanate from Shri. They form part of the Bhuti Shakti of Lakshmi. They are compared to they are prepared and predetermined for salvation, for bondage, or salvation by the Lord's Nigraha or Tirodhana Shakti. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So they're prepared either for salvation or for bondage by the Lord's Nigraha or Tirodhana Shakti. They should then have their form, power, and knowledge obscured, leading respectively to atomic size, powerlessness, and ignorance. Then they get affected by all imperfections like nescience, conceit, attachment, and so on. They indulge accordingly in activities which lead to graver results. The souls are classified under 2 heads, namely pure and mixed. Pradyumna is stated to create the former, the pure, and Anirudha, the latter, the mixed, through Brahma, the creator. There is justification for this. Those who have a stock of good and bad karma to be gone through at the end of the dissolution of the cosmos are required to be introduced into the world by Brahma. So remember, we have this concept that the souls may not reach liberation at the end of a cosmos, at the end of a dissolution of the universe. So in which case they enter back into the body of the Supreme and stay there during the time of dissolution in Sushupti. So the idea would be that when they come back out, if there are any souls when they come back out that have residual karmas, either punya or papas, either good karmas or bad karmas from previous activities. They have to then inhabit bodies and stay in this world. And so Brahma then puts them in these different bodies, gives them different bodies, and so that they can work out that karma. Sort of, I'm not quite understanding what would happen if the soul doesn't have any residual karmas. Would it just go to Vaikuntha? I don't know. So it seems like why would a soul that doesn't have any residual karmas be in the body of the Lord at the time of dissolution, during dissolution? I don't know. It's an interesting question. Okay. Those who have a stock of good and bad karma to be gone through at the end of a dissolution to the cosmos are required to be introduced into the world by Brahma, who is actuated by the quality of rajas or passion, because to create you have to have passion. So they cannot make their appearance in the Krita Yuga. They cannot make their appearance in the Krita Yuga, the first Yuga, which is called Satya Yuga or Krita Yuga, the first age, golden age, when sattva predominates. So the mode of goodness or sattva predominates in the first age, but they cannot make those souls cannot make their appearance at that time. Those who belong to the pure kind must have the sattva predominant. And so they're allowed to appear in the world in Krita Yuga by Pradyumna himself. So I'm guessing there are certain souls that have a predominant with sattva guna, and so therefore they come in the Krita Yuga through Pradyumna. The samam bonam, hita matyantam. Hita matyantam, atyantam means the ultimate goal, right? The samam bonam, right? For the self is to be free, right? Is to be, to attain liberation, moksha. The sorrows should end, never to reoccur, thus giving room for a positive status in the shape of eternal happiness. The Panchayatra doctrines therefore declare that this consists in the final cessation of the succession of sorrows, which implies positive eternal bliss. Okay, and so he gives a sloka to Pramana, Shastra Pramana from Ahibhuddha Samhita 13.9 for that. That is, atomic size, powerlessness, ignorance, which were forced on the self by the power of obscuration, or the Tirodhana Shakti, right? Which I guess we could also say Maya Shakti, right? Or Avidya Shakti, right? The obscuring energy, right? Get fully removed, right? When the soul attains liberation, leaving the self in its natural condition. Since the atomic size is forced on the self, it is possible to hold that the natural size of the self is not atomic. That's an interesting point. The evidence regarding the nature of the liberated soul is that it is omniscient and omnipresent. Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, so that I mean, this doesn't sound like Vaishnava Vedanta to me. This sounds more like Advaita Vedanta in a certain sense. Because it says omnipresent, but it says omniscient. Omniscient means all-knowing. Through it could be the guna vyapti that's been spoken of. So perhaps in the same way that the Tengalayacharya talk about Sri Devi being present everywhere in all places, she's omnipresent through her guna vyapti, through her qualities of omniscience, right? Then in the same way, the individual jivatmans, the individual chit shakti, the individual souls, right, also through their omniscience can have a certain type of omnipresence. This shouldn't be taken as to be the same type of omnipresence as that of the Lord. Its omnipresence cannot be explained if its size is atomic, and so requires explanation. The Ahibhuddha Samhita describes it to be the size of a mote. Okay, so he's given a quote here from Ahibhagya Samhita 627. Not exactly sure what this means, but let's see. It is therefore proper to admit that by atomic is meant small or little. So not necessarily atomic, but it's not huge, but it's not atomic. It's small or little. In the state of bondage, the word anu can be taken to mean spatially restricted, so very, very small. But in the state of release, it can mean omnipresence. Omnipresence, spatially restricted, spatially not restricted, but by the quality of omniscience. That I would say. Exactly how the soul is omnipresent, it has to be explained in that way. The place which the selves occupy after gaining moksha is one from which they do not return to their mundane world. Right, and then he gives a quote from Ahibhagya Samhita 37:26a. This is a non-material place shining with the six qualities. Those are the six qualities, six main qualities that we describe Bhagavan as having. Jnana, Jnana, Bala, Kriya, Teja, Shakti, and Vairagya. I think the released souls shine there with the lusters of crores of suns and moons. They have no food. They take no food. They don't need to. They're in the spiritual world. The supreme God of gods lies there on a serpent couch. That is Anantashesha, Adishesha. Attended by hosts of ever-free selves, the Nityas, the Nityasiddhas or the Nityas, the eternally freed souls. This highest place will disappear at the time of absolute dissolution and emerge at the time of pure creation. Okay, so it may be that this place that they're talking about here is the Svetadweep or the white island in the Milky Ocean, and not actually Sri Vaikuntham. But it's a place where the Lord has a form that he lies on Adishesha or Anantashesha. The released selves will also merge, but will not undergo any suffering. So at the time of dissolution from this place. The nature of the released condition is described as the souls becoming one with God, right? Because the souls enter into the body of God. During dissolution, it becomes latent in him, the soul, that is. The Lord declares that the liberated selves become himself, and that there is no difference between them and himself. This is not Advaita, for he adds that the liberated souls sport as he does. They experience his experiences. An inseparable union between the two is meant, and is described as like that of the Kaustuba gem and the Lord. In that state, the self is noticed to be clinging to the Lord like a gem. The souls become practically, but not really, one. Regarding the means of obtaining liberation, it is said in the Panchayatra Agama that the liberation of the self depends on the compassion of Shri, which persuades her to bestow her grace on the self. This process is technically called Shaktipat. Shaktipat. Interesting. And here it says that he gives a quotation from Lakshmi Tantra 13.8 and says, "No one can force God to bring about this. God knows when to give effect to it. To please God for obtaining Shaktipat, 4 means are recommended. They are karma, sankhya, yoga, and sarvatyaga." Right? You can guess what sarvatyaga is, right? Sarvatyaga means to abandon everything or give up everything. Sarva means everything. Tyaga means abandoning or giving up. So karma is work, right? Sankhya would be knowledge, right? Knowledge or, enumeration, empirical understanding of the universe, right? Yoga would probably be mystic yoga, type of mystic yoga. Could also be understood. Maybe it's bhakti yoga, who knows, right? And sarvatyaga. Sarvatyaga, I'm assuming here the sarvatyaga is being thought of by the Sri Vaishnavas. Reading this in Panchayatra, sarvatyaga sounds to me very much like property. So in another context, the last one is omitted. It is also said that knowledge and religion, dharma, are the means. Right. The latter leading to the former. So first of all, dharma, and then dhyana. So karma yoga, and then dhyana yoga. So dharma, the former, the latter leading to the former. Yes, the dharma meaning karma yoga, and dhyana, and the knowledge meaning dhyana yoga. Very good. The former may be of a direct or indirect nature. The former, that is the karma yoga, can be of direct or indirect nature. So it can actually be activities, direct activities, or it can be indirect activities. The latter leading to the former. The latter leading to the former. The indirect leading to the direct nature, the direct type. Religion is a twofold, being mediate, right? So intermediate, Javadhanavat, and intermediate. So mediate and intermediate. The former, the mediate, consists of offering worship to Brahma and others who represent God, the Angas of God, the different devatas, while the latter takes the form of offering direct worship to God. Right. So there's examples of direct and indirect activities. All kinds of worship sanctioned by and based on the Vedas and systems of thought like Pashupata, which is a type of Shaivism, right? Sankhya and others come under the former. The former meaning the indirect or the mediate. The mediate. The Panchayatra mode, right? So those are considered to be prior, to having to do with worship of the devatas, like that. And the Panchayatra mode is of the latter kind, direct service to God, right? So the quotation for that is Ahibudna Samhita 13, 21b, 22. Among these, karma can be treated as of the immediate kind, when it is employed to worship the Lord. Sankhya refers to tattva jnana, right? Yoga means contemplation on God, which we know, Ramanuja defines contemplation on God or full samadhi contemplation of God at every moment, anusandhana, as being bhakti yoga. So sarvatyaga is the path of property. Yeah, exactly. The karma mode may be taken, but you see how the Sri Vaishnavas later on, they've taken all these things from property and simplified them, and they've given the essence of all these aspects, right? But you can see it's all coming out of the Panchayatra Agamas, all of these concepts, right? They're there, but they're given slightly different names, but the concepts are the same. So the karma mode may be taken to have been treated in the charya section of the text. So this karma or karma yoga, the indirect and the direct methods of worshipping, the indirect methods of worshipping God being through the devatas, and the direct worship being directly to the Lord himself, are treated in the charya section, right? So we had 4 sections, remember, in Panchayatra. The first section is the jnana, the second yoga, the third kriya, and the fourth charya. So in the 4th section, the charya section, where we've made the temple, we've installed the deity, and now we're worshipping daily and occasionally with festivals and things. We're worshipping the deity, right? Direct worship. That is called that is the karma mode. The karma mode, the activities, right? Karma just means activities. The activities of worship, charya. So it involves the worship of the Lord in temples and houses, right? Initially, we read the Samhitas are mainly, they'll deal with temple worship, but we can also adapt them for the worship in houses also. The daily life of those who choose this mode is divided into 5 heads. So there are these 5 different parts of the day, the daily life of the persons who follow this type of Panchayatra. And they are, as we know, Abhigamana, Upadhana, Ija, Swadhyaya, and Yoga. So Abhigamana, as we all know, getting up and getting prepared, right? Washing oneself, doing one's ablutions and washing oneself and getting dressed and putting on the markings of a Vaishnava tilak and everything, and getting ready. Then Upadhana is Abhigamana. Upadhana is collecting the materials necessary to perform the worship of God in the house or in the temple, right? In the form of the deity in the house or the temple. Swadhyaya, then actually performing the worship of God is Ija. Swadhyaya is Swa-adhyaya, is self-study. And yoga is the contemplation of God, or mystic yoga. Every self is required to offer worship in the temple and also in the house. Right. So some people don't perform the direct worship of the deity in the temple, but there are certain priests who do that on behalf of the congregation, but everybody has the right to perform the worship in the house, according to Panchayatra. After attending to the preparatory routine of bath, Sandhya Vandanam, right, which is offering the twilight prayers. So that means for Trivarnikas, it means the Vedic Sandhya Vandanam. And for those who are following the Smarta Varnashrama system, they're either males in Shudra families or females, they'll probably perform some sort of tantric Sandhya Vandana. The males also, the Trivarnikas also perform a type of tantric Sandhya Vandana or Agamas Sandhya Vandana. So after bath and Sandhya and other routines, right, one must approach the sanctum sanctorum, or the deity worship room, right, the place where the Garbha Griha, it's said to be the Griha means the house, the Garbha means the womb house, because the temple is considered like a body, or the house is a body, and the puja room is considered to be like the womb in the body, and the deity is like the embryo in the womb. So sanctum sanctorum, which just simply is Latin for meaning the holiest of holies place, in the temple or house, uttering prayers and attend the worship of God. Right. This is called Abhigamana, which means literally going towards God. So going towards God. After this, fruits, flowers, and other requirements for the worship of God are to be collected. This is known as Upadhana. So the first thing, Abhigamana, he explains it here as getting up and getting ready and initial approach to God, the initial approach to God. Right? Then he says you have to then collect the materials for the actual full worship of God, and that is called Upadhana. Ija is the name given to the ritual of worship itself, right? After taking food, which is called anuyaga. Yaga means a yagya or sacrifice. So anuyaga means a small sacrifice, a small type of sacrifice. Why is it a small? In a big sacrifice, we'll offer lots of wood, lots of ghee, lots of grains into a fire. In the anuyaga or the bhojana, the meal taking, we offer small amounts of ghee and grains into the fire of digestion. So it's called anuyaga, small sacrifice. So after taking food, which is called anuyaga, one has to spend time in the evening, till the evening, in the recitation of Vedic and other texts and study of sacred texts, and listening to discourses of the teacher or elders, reflection upon what one has learned from others, and offering comments on what one has received from others. This is called Swadhyaya. Towards the close of the day, again, Sandhya Vandana is to be performed, right? There should be Sandhya Vandana in the middle also. But anyway, Sandhya Vandana. Sometimes the way the day is set up is that there are the two Sandhyas come actually, the Prataha Sandhya, the early morning Sandhya, and the dawn Sandhya, and the noon Sandhya come actually before Ija, before the main ritual puja. And then later on in the evening Sandhya is performed. Right before offering worship to God again, So this may be an abridged worship, or it could also be, in the case of a temple, or probably not in the house, but in the case of a temple, it could also be a full type of worship, which is offered twice a day. Specifically in the big temples, in the Panchayatra temples, they offer Sahasranama Archana. They're offering puja twice a day with 1,000 names of the Lord, at least twice a day. Normally it's 1,000 names of Vishnu, but it could also be 1,000 names of a particular deity like Narasimha or Krishna or Rama. Towards the close of the day, Sandhya is performed before offering worship to God, to the Lord. Deep contemplation of God must then be undertaken with occasional rests that may pass into sleep. So doing the meditation until one feels that one has to pass off into sleep. Right. The name yoga is given to this. All these together constitute Panchakala Prakriya. Prakriya means the kriya, the activities, Prakriya, that are done at 5 times, Panchakalas, right? And those who follow them, those who follow this are known as Panchakartikas. Panchakartikas follow this system of daily routine. The Panchakala Prakriya, and there's a very good book called Panchakala Kriya Deepa, which you can get, which is published by the Maharaj of Tanjore's library, Saraswati Mahal Library in Tanjore, which is it's a very good exposition of these 5, of all the routines in the 5 different times of the day. So the Panchakala Prakriya is a daily routine shaped out of the mode of conduct laid down in the Smriti texts, right, to suit the needs for the dedication of life to the adoration of Vishnu. The Karma Marga, or we can say Karma Yoga, of the Bhagavad Gita, which is based on the Vedic concept of rituals, is itself a method by which the deeds done are dedicated to God as His. Right? So the idea in Karma Yoga is to do Karma Tyaga, or what's called by Sri Vaishnavas later on as Sattvika Tyaga, the giving up in the mode of goodness, the giving up of the idea of ownership or a proprietorship over the activities or the efforts that are being put forward in Karma Yoga. Giving all of that phala, or that result, to the Lord Himself, as the doer of those activities, as the ultimate doer of those activities. He is the ultimate doer of those activities. As it's said in the Bhagavad Gita, there are these five parts to action, and one of them is the Lord, and therefore without the Lord, no action occurs. So it's a meditation, but at the same time, it's a philosophical fact, doctrine. So the Karma Marga of the Bhagavad Gita, which is based upon the Vedic concept of rituals, is itself a method by which the deeds done are dedicated to God as His alone, as His. This concept evolves a further adaptation to the exclusive worship of Vishnu. Thus, the practical side of life of a devotee of Vishnu is treated in the Panchayatra tradition as karma, or as activities, which is obligatory on all members of society, including those who have taken to the order of ascetics, right? So, although there may be some people like the followers of Shankaracharya who say that a sannyasin, right, should not be performing any work, right? So even in the Gita it says, "Sannyasi to yogi chana niragni chakriya." He performs no work, and the sannyasin performs no work and lights no fire. It means he doesn't cook, which is a type of work, right? So even though it's said there, the ones who are the ascetics who are Pancharatrans, they do this type of karma. They do this type of karma, and they don't give it up. They don't give up these activities. So that's another thing that separates the Pancharatrikas, right? The Pancharatrans from the Advaitins. So jnana, the knowledge, refers to the acquiring of right knowledge of tattva, of truth, of principles, which is the ultimate reality, which is, of course, Sriman Narayana or Vishnu. In particular, what is to be known is related to the fivefold forms of God. So in the Panchayatra system, there are fivefold forms of God, and everything can be related, everything under tattva can be related to them. Para, Vyuha, Virva, Antaryaman, and Archa, which mean the original personality of Godhead. Para. Vyuha, we were just talking about, Vasudeva Sankarsana Pujamna Anirudha, the chapter of Vyuha, and the Upa-Vyuha is Keshava to Damodar. Vibhava, which is the different incarnations that come to this material world from time to time, Sambhavami, Yuke, right? Like Matsyakurma, Varaha, Narasimha, Vamana, Parashurama, Dasarathi Rama, Krishna, Balarama, Krishna, Kalki. Archa, the deities in the temples and in the houses, right? That we can see and we can worship every day. Right? We don't have to wait for an avatar, a scheduled avatar to come. And the Antaryaman, who is carried around within our heart, the super soul, the Paramatman, that is always the witness and always the accompanying the individual soul, the Jivatman. The Vyuha concept has a significant role to play in this Jnana Marga. Jnana, when he says Jnana Marga, it means Jnana Yoga, or just like in the Bhagavad Gita, Jnana Yoga. While the Archa form derives the direct treatment in the Karma Marga, or Karma Yoga. In fact, the Kriya and Charya sections of the Panchayatra, remember which Kriya and Charya are the third and fourth sections of the Panchayatra of each Samhita, and the Kriya deals with the installation and the making of temples and installation of deities, and the Charya deals with the actual karma, the actual activities of worship. Right? So in fact, the Kriya and Charya sections of the Panchayatra text lay emphasis on the Archa form, the deity form. Of course, in the background of the Vyuha concept. The knowledge which is thus acquired requires recapitulation on the basis of their common and divergent characteristics. Right? So there are some common and some divergent characteristics. So now he quotes from Lakshmi Tantra, 16, 26 to 28. The knowledge which is then acquired is real knowledge. This is acquired not by self-effort alone, but also through the grace of God. As we know from the Bhagavad Gita, it says all knowledge comes from me. Knowledge, forgetfulness, and remembrance, they all come from me. Right? So by the grace of God, one can attain the realization by the cultivation of this knowledge. The yoga form, so remember we're talking about karma, jnana, and yoga. The yoga here can mean, it's going to be explained. The yoga mode is the means which is based on the practices enjoined in the yoga system of Patanjali. That means the Astanga yoga system of Patanjali, the eightfold system, which is Yama, Niyama, Pratyahara, Asana, Pratyahara, Dhyana, Samadhi, etc. Right? The process, and left some out obviously. The process is a highly complex one, even for comprehension and difficult to practice. It is purely internal in execution. Okay, so what he's saying here is that the Pancharatrans would adopt the form of yoga, a form of yoga which is based on Patanjali's Astanga yoga, but it will be done completely inside. It wouldn't have any external component. It's purely internal in execution. It is of two kinds, namely samadhi and samyama. The former results from the practice of yoga, samadhi, which means deep meditation on the Supreme. Right? In that condition, the self rests in Brahman, called Srinivasa. Srinivasa is normally the name of Lord Venkateshwara in Tirupati, and remains there undisturbed. The latter consists of the performance of good deeds, which are related only to the highest self. It has physical and mental aspects. I'm assuming, okay. So it purifies the inner organ, meaning the mind, and generates pure knowledge. Yoga consists in the union effected between the self and the Paramatman. Right? So that's what the word yoga means. Yoga means to link the individual soul with the Supreme Soul. And the process is stated to be of 8 parts. This is called Hridyaga. Hridyaga means the sacrifice of the heart. The heart means the mind, which consists in the offering of the self as an oblation or havis. Right? Havis is the grains mixed with ghee, which is offered into a sacrificial fire. So the havis is the oblation. The self itself, the oblation in this case is the Paramatma is the fire, and the Atma, the Jivatman, is the offering into the fire. So this is called Hridyaga. Hridyaga consists of the offering of the self as an oblation, purified through separation from matter, right? The 8 parts or limbs are enumerated as in the yoga system of Patanjali, the 10 constituents of Yama. Yama means, Yama and Niyama are types of rules. Yamas are the positive rules, Niyamas are negative rules, so do's and don'ts, right? So the 10 constituents of Yama, including the 4 of the Yoga Sutras, and have in addition Daya, Driti, Socha, Shama, Arjava, and Mitahara. Aparigraha of the Yoga Sutras is omitted. Socha mentioned here, Socha means cleanliness. So Socha here finds enumerated under Niyama by Patanjali. So it's slightly different. It is yoga. It is based on the Astanga Yoga of Patanjali, but it's not exactly the same in its layout of the details. So some of them here get an original description. For example, Brahmacharya is not mere countenance, right? So Brahmacharya normally means celibacy. So, but includes not regarding one's wife as an object of enjoyment, right? A concept developed through the significance attached to women in the Agamas, right? So in fact, we find that the Agamic priests, especially the priests in the temple, are in the Panchayatra system. They are married. They're grihastas, they're householders. So like that. So to say, so Brahmacharya in this sense is the grihasta form of Brahmacharya, where the grihasta has a wife. But it says here, it includes not regarding one's wife as the object of enjoyment. So among the kinds of niyama or don'ts, right, enumerated by Patanjali, santosha and tapas alone are retained. 8 more are added under the names of Siddhanta Shravana, Dhana, Mati, Ishvara Pujana, Astikya, Hri, Japa, and Vrata. The first of these consists in the study of Vedanta, right? So that is the Siddhanta Shravana. Shravana means to hear, and Siddhanta means the perfected knowledge, the perfect conclusion. Shraddha is faith in the work. Yes, Shraddha is faith in the work that is enjoined in the scriptures, and Ishvara Pujana is worshipping Vishnu with devotion in accordance to one's capacity. Meditation, pranidhana, which is recommended as a means of controlling the mental activities in the Yoga Sutras, does not get treated. So that's not a thing which is mentioned here. Astikya, it does not form part of yogic practice. Astikya consists in the conviction that there exists an object which is accessible through the Vedas. 11 postures are enumerated along with their descriptions. So, in fact, there are some asanas then that are described. Pranayama is the next limb, which receives a very detailed description. Before describing this, the tubular vessels called nadis are required to be purified. They start from the Muladhara, the perineum, right, which is the lowest chakra in the body, around the navel. It says here around the navel, but it's below the navel, and pass through 12 chakras within the body and reach the Brahmarandra, the cavity at the top of the head. The power called Kundalini gets its name from its resting in the Muladhara, like a coiled serpent, covers up the Brahmarandra with its 8 mouths. So I guess it's an 8-headed serpent, right? It has 8 mouths, each representing one aspect of Prakriti. There are 72,000 nadis or nerves, subtle nerves within the body, of which the Sushumna, Ida, and Pingala, the Sushumna is the one that goes up the middle of the spine. The Ida starts on the left, the Pingala starts on the right, and they cross over at the different chakra points, starting at the base at the Muladhara, and then ending at the Brahmarandra. Are the most prominent. So Sushumna, Ida, and Pingala are the most prominent. The soul moves about in the chakras like a spider in its web. Apart from the 5 pranas, prana, apana, dhyana, udana, and samana, there are 5 more called Naga, Kurma, Krikara, Devadatta, and Dhananjaya. So anybody who knows anything about Pancharatric installation will know that when we do the pranadi vayu nyasa in the Jivadi Tattva Homam, right? And also with the nyasam, we will also be mentioning these 10 pranas, not just 5, but 10 pranas. So normally you'll hear about 5 major pranas and 5 smaller pranas or airs within the body. So they are prana, apana, dhyana, udana, samana are the main ones. Then naga, kurma, krikara, devadatta, and dhananjaya. The nadis are to be purified by filling up the Ida and the Pingala by turns with air and expelling it. So this is why pranayama, up the top it says pranayama is a very detailed description, because this is all done by pranayama, and that's why we breathe in and out through the different nostrils to influence the Ida and Pingala and the Sushumna, to balance those different airs within the body. So the nadis are being purified by filling up the Ida and Pingala by turn with air and expelling it. And this must be done thrice before the performance of morning, midday, and twilight Sandhya worship. So we all know that pranayama is part of Vedic Sandhya Vandana, and it can also be done in Tantric Sandhya or Agamic Sandhya Vandana. But a different type of pranayama, the Agamic pranayama, is done, usually it's done with the Astakshara pranayama instead, or depending on what, if you're following a different samhita where Sadakshara or Dvadasakshara are more important, then you might do a different type of pranayama for that. But normally, Astakshara pranayama would be the type of Agamic pranayama that's done. And of course, we all know about Vedic pranayama in Vedic Sandhya. In 3 months, this process, if practiced every day, will cleanse the nadis of all impurities. So when the impurities are gotten rid of, pranayama is to be performed, doing the japa of Sudarshana or Gayatri mantra all along. So it's talking about doing japa of Gayatri mantra. Now, which Gayatri mantra is talking about? It's probably talking about the Savitri Gayatri here, but it could also be talking about other Gayatris, specifically the Narayana Gayatri. So Narayana Gayatri is Narayana Vidmahe Vasudevaya Dhimhi Tanna Vishnu Prachodayat. So it may be that. And doing japa of Sudarshana. Sudarshana here probably means the Sudarshana Mula Mantra, Om Sahasraham Pat, and not the Sudarshana Mala Mantra, which is much longer. So when the impurities are gotten rid of, pranayama is to be performed during the japa of Sudarshana, or the Gayatri Mantra all along. And we have to look and see the text here is coming from Parameshwara Samhita, I believe, right? 2-3. Okay, right. So that is the first part about pranayama, and I think we can just leave it there, and we'll pick it up with pratyahara the next time.
I always wondered about, we say that Lakshmi, or we understand that Lakshmi is Jagat Janani. She is the mother of the universe. So it's very interesting that it's mentioned there that the jivas come via her. Yeah, so that, because I always wondered, the Lord is the source of everything, and obviously the source of Lakshmi too.
Right.
But how it is that, we always say that the jivas come from the body of the Lord. So apparently it's coming from the body of the Lord via Lakshmi. It seems.
I don't know. This is one concept here, like that. I think we should look into Lakshmi Tantra. I would say that maybe there are different concepts given in different samhitas, and all of these ideas are given to us to give us an idea. The soul is never really created. So So that to give us a little bit of an idea of the nature of the relationship between God, Shri, and the souls, right? And so, therefore, especially in the Lakshmi Tantra, where Lakshmi and, in fact, even ordinary women and any female gender person, right, is given a certain aspect, a certain quality from Lakshmi, and so the whole Samhita is about Lakshmi. The whole Samhita is about females, and therefore the emphasis on this type of explanation of the origin of the souls. But it's not really the origin of the souls, because the soul has no origin. In one sense, we can't really say it has an origin. Although everything has an origin, God is the origin of everything. Still, you shouldn't think that this one narrative which is being given to us here like this is the only way of looking at it. So don't take this literally as the only idea. There are other ideas also, and these are just to be meditated upon and to give us an idea of the relationship between the different between God, Goddess Lakshmi, and the individual jiva.
It does make sense. Nice. She's the mother of the universe. She's the mother of all of us.
Yeah.
Which
he says that.
Jagan Mataram.
Jagan Mataram. Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. So that makes it nice, as you say, as a meditation, and it makes sense. It adds up, the way that we see Lakshmi as the mother. And the other interesting thing was the Shaktipata thing.
Yeah, Shaktipata. But these things are, Sanskrit words have many different meanings, and today, if we talked about Shaktipada, normally we talk about it as not being a term which is used so much by Vaishnavas. Like, for instance, Vaishnavas don't tend to use the word Ishvara for God, but in philosophy, in Vedanta, we use the term Ishvara to mean God, right? But normally, in just normal speech, if we talk about Ishvara, we're normally talking about Shiva. So similarly with Shaktipat has a very, today, if you talk about Shaktipat, if anybody's ever heard of Shaktipat, they're thinking about Shaktism, and they're thinking about at least Shaivism or Shaktism, and they're thinking about some sadhana or some something in Shaktism. But it can have a meaning in Panchayatra also. So the words are taken to mean a slightly different thing in Panchayatra. Shaktipat. The terminology, the same jargon, the same Sanskrit terminology might mean some slightly different things in different schools. And that's why when we're talking to people from other schools, we have to first of all define our terms, because what they mean by bhakti, what they mean by Shaktipat, what they mean by a word, by their jargon, may not be the same way that we understand it, and vice versa.
The other thing was the what do they call it? Panchakalika?
Panchakalika.
People
Panchakalika. People don't use that. People don't use that term. People don't use that term much, but yeah, I can see it. Those who follow the system of 5 times a day. Panchakalikas.
Okay, so but most of it. But I guess for the average person, most of it is done in the morning. Abhigamana, obviously. Upadhana, obviously. Ijya. So I guess for the average working person, but then as you mentioned, the more, I guess Orthodox Vaishnavas, everything, will extend, okay, at least Sandhya Vandanam to noon time, and then after Sandhya Vandanam, then the Ijya will happen. And then the rest of the day you spend in Swadhyaya, which is meditation.
Swadhyaya is study.
Thinking about that.
Swadhyaya study, yoga is meditation.
Study. Which from the study leads into yoga, which also yoga leads into even sleep, which is supposed to be the last part of the day.
Right.
So anyway, I was just interested about that because of how to apply it in a modern sense, which we are trying to do as it is anyway.
Well,
Not a
I mean,
question,
how to apply it to somebody's life who works a job,
yeah, exactly.
That's difficult. But now, if somebody was a Brahmin, a teacher, then then that swadhyaya, he would be teaching students, or he would be studying or teaching students during that time. So he could make his livelihood by doing that. If somebody's a pujari, if he's an archaka in a temple, then obviously he's supposed to. He probably will spend very little time doing the abhigamana, upadhana, and ija at home, and then he has to come to the temple and he has to do similar thing in the temple. Abhigamana in the temple sense would be probably considered coming to the Dwajastamba and paying obeisances and saying the prayer, the Jitante sloka or Jitante stotra, and then collecting all the items for the worship of the Lord, and then that's upadana, and then ija of the Lord, and then what would be svadhyaya? I don't know. Maybe he goes home for lunch and then studies something and then comes back to the temple again. Because there's a tendency, because India is a hot country, there's a tendency for that siesta, that midday break where the temples are closed and the Brahmins go and they also sometimes sleep, but according to this system, they should be studying probably. Anyway, and then the study and then for the archaka, of course, maybe he's not really a panchakalika, because he comes back to the temple and instead of studying, he has to come back and perform more worship for others that are coming there to the temple. And then he goes home and meditates a little bit and does Sanyarandana, meditates a little bit, maybe eats something and goes to sleep, thinking of his head on the foot of the Lord like a pillow.
I guess one in a Western working sense, one who has a work occupation, I guess they just try to do each one of those in some way. They try to apply each one of those. And you said that Panchakala Deepa is a book that one would go to, which will describe this in detail.
That's one book. Panchakala Kriya Deepa. Yeah, I have it.
Yeah,
But
that's something that is interesting that we could probably go through. So at a later date, that we could think about, the different meditate on what the different things are.
It's like all the Anakams are like that. All the Anakams are like, there's Gopal Deshika Anakam, there's the Hobulamat Anakam, there's I'm not sure exactly, Jirpadi Tiruvarada Nakrama by Manavala Muni, but it may not be a full Anakam. There's, of course, the prototype for all of these is the Nitya Granta by Ramanuja. Probably a good idea to go through all of these in some sort of order.
But the Nitya Granta, is it a very big work?
No,
it's not big at all.
Work?
Okay.
It's not big. No.
Actually, the Nitya probably would be the best one to go through. The original, well, at least Ramanuja's original Nitya Granta. Anyway,
at the same time, sometimes the original acharyas, they put out a book which is not as complete, or they write a book. Sometimes a great acharya will write a book, and he'll write it for a particular audience, and he'll consider that the audience should already know certain things. So Sometimes they put ... they don't fill in the whole thing because they assume everybody knows that part. So for people who don't know anything, sometimes it's better to see the commentaries or the later works by other people who are writing for a different audience, an audience that knows nothing, perhaps. But of course, if you know something about the rituals and everything like that, then you don't have to see all of the rituals written out. So some of the books may appear to be just the bare bones or the skeleton or like an outline, and therefore you have to fill in the details.
And Manaval Mamunigal also has done an Anikam also. Isn't it?
I'm not sure if you can call it an Anikam. There's a thing called Jirpati. I have that too. It's very much Tamil mostly.